We're going to review that Canada food guide. The process was flawed. The process was flawed, complete lack of consultation, seems to be ideologically driven by people who have a philosophical perspective and a bias against certain types of healthy food products. I truly do believe that chocolate milk saved my son's life. He is the pickiest eater you've ever met, and we couldn't get him to eat much else, and so we're really worried about, where was he going to get his calcium and other vitamins. And he loved chocolate milk, and he would drink chocolate milk by the tumbler full.
Welcome back to Power and Politics in the Power Panel with Sally Hauser, Tim Murphy, and Tim Powers. Those comments by Conservative leader Andrew Scheer to the dairy farmers meeting in Saskatoon yesterday continue to get a lot of traction online. Chocolate milk digs aside, there was blowback over his suggestion that the newly revised food guide is not science-based but ideological or biased. The group, representing more than 5,000 dietitians, tweeted this today. Canada's new food guide is most definitely based on science. It encourages vegetables, fruits, whole grains, and protein foods, including dairy. If you have a picky child, a dietitian can help. Yesterday, Health Minister Jeanette Petitpas-Taylor said it was, quote, ridiculous. Scheer was, quote, spreading lies. So why would Scheer go after something like the food guide? Tim, I'll start with you. What's up with this? Is this all about the dairy farmers?
Well, I came off my high horse earlier. I don't eat horses, and often I sound like an ass. So this may be the segment where I sound like an ass.
Bleep it out, bleep it out.
So, you know what? It's really fascinating. So we've had two leaders get in trouble around food and water. Justin Trudeau, as you know, had a little bit of trouble when he was asked about how he was going to consume when he didn't know what a Tetra Pak was. And now Andrew Scheer doing this. On the surface, it seems really stupid. So I will admit that. But I do wonder if there's something else at play other than the fact, as we all were talking about in the break, he was speaking at the Dairy Farmers Conference. The dairy farmers have supported Andrew Scheer. That was an acknowledgement to them. But I wonder if it's a bit about creating two streams of political debate. One is about the us and the thems. Scheer is trying to position himself as the people of the us, and Justin Trudeau as the people of the thems.
What's the us and the them in this case?
In this case, it's the government telling you that you should buy food that you can't afford. And that's the other element of that. There's an argument about affordability I think he is trying to make. I think you can actually go out and find food choices that are not as expensive as you would think they are, that are now in the food guide. I don't think he minds this debate. I don't think he minds having Jeanette Petitpas-Taylor and others call him out, because he'll see, look, he'll say to people he wants to move over and people who are already with him, look, they're going to tell you how to live your lives. They're preaching to you again, and I'm not going to stand up with it. And he'll take the criticism that, well, you know, you really don't know what you're talking about on the food guide. The food guide provides the entry into this debate.
That's an interesting, I think actually when that food guide was first released, I remember having Minister Petitpas-Taylor on and asking her those questions, because a lot of produce is really expensive. Yeah. Anyone who shops knows that it is. And affordability is a question. Tim, if that is the genesis of what they're trying to get at, was it accomplished in the way in which the message was delivered?
Look, as a Liberal, all I hope is you just keep playing that clip.
Yeah.
It is, you know, look, the best part is, like, literally yesterday, Andrew Scheer was tweeting about how he could get a deal done with China or Trump when Trudeau couldn't. The guy can't even get his own kid not to drink chocolate milk is the only food group he can do. That's a bit of a joke. But the point being, I think actually he is misreading an important group of voters who can vote either Conservative or Liberal, and that is suburban families. And frankly, a lot of suburban families I know are actually quite concerned about, you know, good food, what's the right balance, how do we ensure our families eat well, that we're not just all about sugary drinks like chocolate milk and, you know, sweetened drinks, but that we raise our kids on stuff that make them healthy. And I think that is a common refrain in many suburban communities, and I think he's completely missed the boat on it. I think what he, you know, it is a sin that is common to many politicians. He's committed it. He pandered to his audience, and I think it was a big mistake.
I would guess suburban families care, Sally, about affordability too, but I think at this point, I mean, we also should say, like, this was before the dairy farmers. The dairy farmers were very upset about not being consulted in the lead up to this food guide, which differentiated from the past food guides in which various industries were consulted, much more so. So, I mean, there's something else at play here too.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, the idea that, Andrew Scheer is going after the dangerous ideology and philosophy of, checks notes Canada's food guide is a little, if you're trying to do that us versus them thing that Tim was talking about, this is a little of a weird place to do it. I think more, one of my favorite lines is something along the lines of never attribute to cunning or strategy what can be attributed to incompetence or a mistake. And I think that's probably more likely what we see here is a little bit forgetting that what you say in one part of the country is heard in every other part. Obviously, he's speaking to the crowd. He's given this speech very deliberately. Remember, this was not in the speech. This was to a question, in response to a question. So I don't know that there is, a whole lot of great strategy that goes on behind that, to be honest. The food guide should be reviewed, but it's just happened for the first time in a long time. It just seems like an own goal to me.
Again, I think this will play out, and maybe it is an own goal, maybe it isn't. But the bigger thing here, I think he's also trying to touch on is the government thinks you don't have common sense. So he uses that story about his son, which is interesting enough, and I'm sure people can relate to children who are picky eaters, and they've chosen things maybe that weren't in the food guide. But then there are lots of us who will know the story of our relatives, right, who didn't have the same knowledge of food. I had a grandmother who lived to be 99 who just ate meat and potatoes and milk and didn't drink. That's probably what kept her going, so there was no sugar. So he's playing off a little bit of that.
My grandparents lived very long. They ate a totally Greek diet. Just
there you go. The oils, the Mediterranean oils are often good for you. Again, I don't think he's afraid of the debate. I don't know if Tim is right. It may backfire in certain areas, but cost is a huge issue for people. Not everybody can afford to go to Whole Foods, and some of the food, the cheaper food that is out there tends to be the less healthy food, and some of it eaten in moderation is not terrible for you. So I think it's also him saying, I get you more than Justin Trudeau does. Maybe it was mistimed, but there could be elements of resurrection in here if it wasn't mistimed.
Did I mishear that?
You got 10 seconds, Tim. Sorry.
Did I mishear that it's the food law? It's just a food guide.
That's right. Yeah. No,
okay.
It's a guide.
Just so I understand.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much to the Power Panel this evening. Sally Hauser, Tim Murphy, and Tim Powers. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video. Thanks for watching.